What happened?
Come have a coffee with survivors. Audra and Roman inviting guests and holding space to discuss the healing journey to reunite with our true selves.
We see you. We hear you. Welcome to Coffee with Survivors, our safe place.
Hello, everyone.
You guys busted me having a sip of coffee. Hi.
Hi, Audra. Hi, Barbara.
Hey.
I'm so excited to hear Audra's, well, because I love Audra's voice. So she's like, come have coffee. She had my favorite voice. Because I always used to tell Audra, and I've been friends for like 8 years now, 7 or 8 years. And I always used to tell her she should be in radio because she has such a good voice.
It's my
So she became a hypnotherapist.
Yeah. Like I know what I'll do with that.
So welcome everyone today. We're having a very interesting guest today, Barbara Book, which is my wife and Audra's friend. Now, the reason why we have Barbara here is because she had a very life-changing experience. And before we go into that experience, maybe Audra would give us kind of like a introduction in our chapter today.
Oh, so you want me to talk about what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, this is actually something I have never experienced. So this is going to be an enlightening conversation for me. And I'm really hoping to learn a lot and find some understanding towards medical trauma. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So I believe we are going to touch on how medical experiences can create traumatic response and also PTSD, not only in the person who's experiencing the medical experiences, but also maybe a parent of a child that's going through it, or a spouse that's going through it with a loved one, or their significant other. So that's what direction we're going in today. Medical trauma.
Barbara, tell us a little bit about your experience.
Okay. All right. So I don't even remember the year. I want to say it was 2012 or 2013. Let me start by just saying I've been a healer in one form or another for the last at least 20 years, going on 21. And been doing it professionally for almost as many years. And for a while, I had kind of a regular Joe job, and then I decided to go into healing full time. So I joined this lovely healing practice, which is where I met Audra. Actually, there were like 14 other people there who also did different forms of healing and alternative healthcare, and she was hanging out with us back then. And about a month after I started there, I was at work and I started feeling very anxious. And it was weird for me because I'm not a very anxious person. So I do yoga every day and meditate, and I do a lot of self-work and seeing practitioners to keep myself energetically healthy and things like that. Eat right, all that good stuff. And so it was a little bit weird. I started feeling anxious. And then I thought, well, I did just quit my job. And, I just started at this healing center and I don't really know these people that well. And I'm feeling a little intimidated. Maybe it's that. But then it just started getting kind of worse and worse throughout the day, to the point of where I canceled my clients and I went home because I'm like, my heart was beating really fast. And I went home and I thought, you know what? I think I'm having a panic attack. I'm going to have a glass of wine. So I have a glass of wine, and the next thing I know, it's literally like I'm shaking so bad I can barely pick up the phone. And I'm like, something's wrong. I grabbed my keys and my purse and went to the car to go to urgent care. And then I realized that I couldn't drive. I started losing control of my motor functions. I called 911. And by the time they got to me in the parking lot, I was going into convulsions, and I was, from what they told me, going into cardiac arrest. Now I'm a very healthy person. When I got to the hospital, they pumped me full of drugs, got me to the hospital, and they thought I was overdosing on speed. So, I'm like, I haven't had any speed, but hey, I was at work. Who knows who dosed what, So I had water from the thing. But there was nothing in me. And they couldn't figure out what was going on. They're like, your heart's like a 25-year-old, super healthy. You look like your lungs look like a marathon runner. We don't understand what's happening. And then finally they figured out that I was having a very rare event called a thyroid storm, and that I had a disease that both my grandmothers had called Graves' disease, which is it's a type of thyroid disease that causes your body, your immune system, to attack your thyroid, and it overproduces cells, and it causes hyperthyroidism. So you have a sped up thyroid. And my adrenal glands, what happened was all of a sudden my thyroid just kind of broke and started gushing chemicals out into my body, which caused all my other parts to go into an adrenal overload. My adrenals started firing off again. It was just like overdosing on speed.
Sounds like a fight, flight, or freeze in a physical.
Yeah. So the result of that was being in ICU for a little while. I think you might have come to visit me. I don't remember.
I did not, but I remember when that happened.
Yeah, it was scary for everybody because everybody's like, what? Barbara went down? What is going on?
Well, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with you.
Yeah. So once they figured it out, and also just because I didn't present any other symptoms, none. So it was very strange. Usually people have this for years. So they go through bouts of anxiety. They get diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorders or bipolarism. I didn't have any of that. So I was in the hospital for a while they were trying to regulate my blood pressure, calm my thyroid down, get me on medications that were going to calm it down. Meanwhile, I'm in ICU, which is a really scary place to be, and hooked up to all these machines. And there was this constant beeping noise. If anybody's ever been in ICU, I know Roman had his little stint in there, so he knows what I'm talking about. There's these noises, and then every time, all of a sudden, if you're like one of your little pads that you have in your chest to monitor your heart rate, like comes off or whatever, all of a sudden this alarm will go off. And then on top of that, every 15 minutes, I had a blood pressure cuff on my arm that was literally going off every 15 minutes for 3 days. So I couldn't go to sleep because as soon as I would fall asleep, it would this blood pressure cuff would tighten up on my arm and then go off. On top of that, there's people dying in the hospital, right near me. Being kind of energetically sensitive anyway, it was very and empathic. It was uncomfortable. It was scary because my body was failing me. I didn't really understand at the time that this is a chronic autoimmune disease that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. So that event, going in the hospital, being rushed to the emergency room and literally almost dying, because that's what I was told. They said if you had just waited a few more minutes, you would not have made it. So that going from a perfectly healthy person to that happening was very difficult. And the experience in the ER was very difficult. The experience in ICU was very difficult. And so fortunately, I had my twin sister in town and I had friends. I had somebody, Maureen, stayed with my dogs while I was in the hospital. And people came and brought me healthy food because in America, they don't serve you healthy food in the hospital. They serve you crap. So just to try to keep me healthy. And when I got home, things changed for me drastically. Because I had this disease that causes these intense emotions. Literally, I could be the calmest, meditating, and this intense anxiety would go over me, or anger or sadness. They must have asked me about 50 times if I had any thoughts of suicide when I was in the hospital. Because I guess apparently people who have Graves' disease can go through intense bouts of emotions, which I certainly did. And I had to deal with normal people while I was going through these intense bouts of emotions. So it became very difficult for friends and family to be able to deal with me because my personality had changed so much. It also got really hard for people at work to deal with me. They didn't know me very well. I had only been there for like a month before I got sick. So they just started thinking, well, this chick's like, you know, she's got a short fuse, you know, or she's really sensitive. And it was really challenging. It was not a healing response that I received at my job by any stretch of the imagination. It was, I started getting kind of like attacked a bit from people who were there. Not Audra.
Are you talking about the healing center or a different job?
I'm talking specifically about the healing center.
Okay.
And it's not something that I posted online or that I talked about very much, but there was abusive behavior toward me. You know, looking back on it, I kind of understand because I was very emotional, but you know, if it had been me, and this had happened to somebody else, I would have studied up on the disease and said, okay, this is what this person is going through. How can I support them? And that's not what happened. Fortunately, I did have a lot of people who supported me. I did lose a lot of people as well, but that's okay. You know, you find out who your friends are when you go through a crisis.
Yeah.
But the PTSD portion of it was pretty intense. You know, aside from just having an autoimmune disease and all the fun stuff that comes with that, losing your control of your body like that makes you not feel safe in your body. You start to not feel safe in your body. It's a very bizarre feeling because, okay, you need this body to be here on the planet in 3D, right? I firmly believe in a spiritual reality and that most of us is non-local and isn't in the third dimension. But because I'm woohoo, I'm a total woohoo chick. But also, you know, the thing of it is that you need your body to have your experiences here. And I lost my body. So I went down from a very healthy, like 110 pounds, with good muscle tone to being, I'm going to say 92, 93 pounds, very weak with most of it was muscle loss. Because I had to be careful about doing exercise because my heart rate would go too much up too high. We had and I was on this medication that kept your heart rate steady. So I couldn't, my heart rate wouldn't go up to match my physical exercise. So I had to walk really slowly. I was dizzy. Every time I started feeling, and I started having this weird thing where I didn't want to hear my heart. For 4 days, all I heard was my heart monitor, boop, 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 boop. And then when it would start, my thyroid would start going off. It'd be like, do, 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 do. And I would get scared I was going to have a heart attack again. So just hearing that for 4 days in the hospital, I started hearing that in my head. And I couldn't go underwater in the bathtub because I could hear my heart beating in the bathtub. I actually got a fear, and I forgot what it's called, but there's actually like a thing for it where you are afraid of hearing your own heartbeat. And I got that. So I couldn't hear my heartbeat. And also I had an arrhythmia for about 6 months until everything, even though my heart was super healthy, it was all caused from the thyroid hormones going off. Okay. So it would be fine. And then all of a sudden it would be do-do-do, and I would feel it in my chest, and it would put me in a tailspin. I did tons of work. I went to tons of different alternative healthcare providers, along with the regular endocrinologist. I did my own self-work, energy work, healing work, you name it. And I had a very hard time getting my health back to a point where I could function on a daily basis. On top of that, being a healer, there was the whole stigma of the wounded healer. And, you know, I just started this practice and quit my other job, and now I'm sick. Who's going to come see me? You know? So I was having PTSD symptoms of the panic, like with the heart. Every time my heart would start to beat faster, every time I had to go in to get my thyroid checked, because I had an extreme case of thyroid disease. I had 2 thyroid storms. I had one, and then I had another one 2 months later. So fortunately, it was not an intense one, but as a result, my thyroid ended up just completely like pooping out on me. And then I went hypothyroid, which has its own set of illnesses, but at least I know my body is not going to kill me anymore. Meaning, which is an ironic thing to say because your body is the thing that dies when you die. But what was weird was I wasn't so much scared of dying as I was just this kind of suffering. It was the suffering component of it that was the hardest thing. It's like I couldn't think very well. So I kind of lost my brain and my capacity to be able to really function at the capacity that I was used to, which was something that was very difficult for me. And I stopped having partners. I stopped dating because I didn't want to, I knew how difficult it was to be around me, or I thought it was difficult to be around me. But, you know, most people are like, no, it's not that big of a deal. I also, my weight started fluctuating like crazy. I would start panicking if I lost weight. Like when I started gaining weight, I was really happy about it. And when I started losing weight, I would start panicking, thinking that I was getting sick again. And I would even tell Roman, like, we need to go to urgent care right now. I need to get my thyroid tested. And it's always so beautifully balanced because I went into remission 5 years ago. But I still have this panic attack every time they put the needle in my arm that I'm going to hear bad news. I've developed a fear of doctors. I've developed a fear of any kind of healthcare whatsoever because every time that I would go in there, I would get bad news. So it was really interesting. It was just the one event of going into the hospital and that experience completely changed everything. Like I said, I could not, I couldn't even hear my own heartbeat. I don't even know how to explain to you what that feels like. I couldn't give somebody a hug if I heard their heartbeat. It was the most bizarre experience. Just now, when decided to go and do a float, we went and did a float, and I opted to have music piped in so that I didn't have to listen to my heartbeat, but I had such a hard time with it. For 45 minutes, I was in like hell in there because that's all you can hear because you have earplugs in so the salt water doesn't get in your ears. And I could just hear my heart. Now my heart was like steady and normal, but it made me panic until the last 15 minutes. I finally calmed down. And I think that people don't realize how traumatic it is to be in the hospital just to begin with. But then when you have those experiences with the machines and you have people running around you, you don't understand. You're laying there basically almost naked on an emergency table because they take your clothes off. Okay. Yeah. And then they put you, and then you're pooping on yourself and peeing on yourself, and people are cleaning it up, and there's all these hot, firemen standing around you while this is happening. And it was really, but it was like embarrassing. So what was funny was I was having this really intense emotional, really intense physical experience. And I know that they were trying to save my life. And on the other end, I was horrified and I felt violated by the thing. Nobody was asking me if they could touch me. Nobody was asking me if they could take my clothes off and touch my private parts while they wiped away feces, because I did. I pooped myself a bunch of times. I'm sure it happens with women in childbirth and things like that too, but it was just, at least you're kind of, it's going to happen, right? But I didn't know this was going to happen. And I felt really weirdly violated too. People would just come in. They wouldn't ask me if it was okay if they took my blood pressure or touched me or took blood. They would just come in and stick me with a needle and things like that. Again, I realized why. But I don't think that healthcare providers actually understand the emotional component of this. I know that in some countries they have, a therapist come in and have conversations with you and things like that. Here, it wasn't even offered to me. It wasn't ever a suggestion that that somebody come in to soothe me or calm me or communicate with me how it was going to work. okay, people are going to come in and they're going to do this for you. They need to do this procedure. They didn't even tell me they were going to give me an MRI. They just put me on a gurney and just brought me in there. And I'm like, what are we doing? And they're like, oh, we're doing an MRI. Like it was like people didn't talk to me. It was like I was a piece of meat.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Now, the second time I went in for the Thyroid Storm, it was a different hospital and it was a different situation. They were very helpful and supportive, and they talked me through the process of everything that they were doing, and I felt a lot more comfortable. But I know that in medical emergencies, my story is very similar to other people where they don't give you information. They don't tell you what's going on. They just do what they do, and it's very scary. So, you know, PTSD when it comes to medical emergencies is not uncommon. And it not just in children. There's a lot of articles about it as far as kids go, but it's a very common thing with adults. Over the years, the more people I do healing work on, there are a lot of people who struggle with this. And they're embarrassed to say anything. They're embarrassed that, you know, how much fear they have around certain things, how much how they feel like a hypochondriac when anything goes wrong with their body because they're scared they're going to end up in the hospital, which is a horrible place to be. And so part of it, I've said this to Roman, I don't want to go into the doctor because what if I have to go to the hospital? You know, and he's like, what if there's something really wrong with you? I'm like, I don't care. I would rather die than go into the hospital. That's how bad my situation was as far as my PTSD and my fear of like my heart rate and the beeping noises and my fear of a diagnosis and all this kind of stuff. And some of it stays with me. I've done a heck of a lot of work around it, but I had to go into like immediate care the other day. What was it, like 3 weeks ago? Because I was feeling anxious and I was concerned that it was my thyroid again. So Roman brought me into immediate care and I was terrified. And because I was terrified, my blood pressure was high and my heart rate was high. And I'm like, they're going to admit me. I was so scared. But then when they took the test, I was completely fine. There was nothing wrong with me. I was just a little anxious that day because I've been really busy and stuff like that. But it was intense fear, right, Roman?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was really scared.
At every level.
Hearing you tell your story, Barbara, it makes sense to me how someone, even though I haven't experienced it, I can completely hear how it makes sense that someone could literally have PTSD from a medical experience. I mean, from yours, like your body started failing you. Your body was basically going against you.
Yeah.
And you had no control. And you didn't know what was wrong with you. And not only were you having like a medical emergency, but it had to do with your thyroid, which has a lot to do with hormones and stuff like that, which creates all these big, huge emotions that you also had no control over. And nobody knew what was wrong with you. I remember like when you went through that and you got diagnosed with the thyroid storm. Yeah. Like it was just starting to become, people just started understanding a little bit more about the thyroid. So you were kind of like way shower a little bit. Like you were one of the first people that I had met in my life that had gone through something like that. But then after you, I started realizing that it started becoming more and more common with women.
Yeah, there was at the healing center that I worked at. How many women were there? I think there were like
it was mostly women. Yeah.
And guess what? Every single one of them, save one, had thyroid disease. Our naturopath, the person who did the biofeedback machine. I'm not going to name any names.
Right.
The massage therapist, the intuitive that we had, the person who did intuitive readings, me. Who else was there? The person at the front desk. Okay, they all had thyroid disease, every single one of them. It's very common. So they say right now that 25% of the female population has it. For me personally, I would say that it gets higher the older you get.
Yeah.
So, I would say that easily 50% of the female population has thyroid disease over the age of 40. That's what I think. I think you got a 50-50 shot. And there's a reason for that. There's a lot, we get fed a lot of hormones in our food, and even in the stuff that they put, the chemicals and everything else that they put. We've got genetically modified food now. I mean, we've kind of destroyed all the nutrients in the soil. We just haven't taken care of Mother Earth, and we haven't taken care of our food sources at all. So we're not getting the nutrients that we need. We're not getting outside as much as we should, because we're being told to slather, lotion all over our bodies, because and we have skin cancer in my family. So I'm Irish, and I get freckles, and I'm pale. So I'm never out in the sun. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yes, you do.
Audra, I have a question.
Yes.
You've been now healer for over 17 years, and
20.
I remember 20, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I had my first contact with energy healers a couple of 20 years back. I was personally judging them. So if you're a healer, why are you getting sick? And then I remember, wait a minute, they blame Jesus too. If you're on the cross, why don't you get yourself down? And then when I'm hearing the story, basically all these things fall in place, and we know each other for at least 2 years marriage, and earlier. What is going on with the healing community, where you suddenly, as a good healer, being sick? How did you feel the community responded to that?
It isn't that good. But you know what? The thing of it was it was a blessing that I got sick, because it made me a better healer. It made me search outside of what I was already doing, to learn about sick, because I was one of those people. I was kind of judgy. I was a little bit judgy of healers that were really sick, or who, ate really poorly, drank too much, smoked too much dope, didn't take care of themselves, didn't exercise. I was a little bit judgy. And the thing of it is that, well, my idea was, if you just take care of yourself, you're going to stay healthy. And that's not true. It can happen to anybody. And I'm not saying that to try to put fear into anybody, but it's the truth. It's why we should never judge anybody for their illness, whether they eat McDonald's every day, or they're a yoga master, and they eat vegan, and they've never put anything bad in their body or on top of it. And, you can get sick. It doesn't matter. It just happens. It's something that happened. But I did get really ostracized in the community. There were some very supportive people. Again, there were a lot of people in that healing center who had Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And there was one who also had Graves' disease, but then it flipped, like mine did, and she started going hypothyroid. So, so there were supportive people, but I did get a lot of negative comments, and people who were very snooty in the community. I think I scared them, because I was like a mirror. If I could go down, then they could go down, and I think it made them uncomfortable.
Well, since we reached that point, how our trauma affects other people. Coming in as a husband, and of course as a friend and / colleague, I got involved with my previous relationships where somebody was sick and I was there helping.
Yeah.
And I appreciate backwards that time, because back then I didn't. I felt kind of a victim. I appreciate the experience that I had dealing with all these individual aspects. I would not be able to follow through our relationship if I hadn't had that experience in the past. As a healer, I see we come in, if a healer is in your environment, a partner, sibling, or parent, that is a big trigger, because then as a healer we want to step in and help our child, help our partner, help our sibling. And I feel this is kind of like a situation where we as healers feel helpless.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we violate because we want you to heal, and I want you
Yeah.
to listen to what I had to tell you, because I heal all these people and now I have to heal you. And it becomes an intense pressure on both sides. The person who has to, in that trauma spin, have to take care of the partner who's going into a trauma spin and holding space. But on the other hand, I feel you got overwhelmed with all these people telling you what to do to get healthy.
Yeah.
How did that work for you?
That's a good point. That's a really good point, Roman. And that is another thing that's really common. Again, when you go through a health crisis and you're suffering with PTSD as a result of that health crisis, along with the physical component of it, the emotional component of it, and that fear and the triggers that happen as a result of the intense experience that you have, as well as the diagnosis. People, well, with healers specifically, and just with people around me in general, I tend to hang out with people who are extremely empathic and they're very sensitive to the emotional states of others. And the thing of it is that when you are a healer, you have a vested, or the people around you, you tend to want to try to fix everybody around you. And that's how you become a healer to begin with, because you want to help ease people's suffering. And it's for a much more selfish reason than we realize sometimes. It's because their suffering is making us uncomfortable, so we want to try to fix it. And this is what happened in the community. Everybody was always telling me what to do, unwelcome advice. The people around me, my poor twin sister, she took the brunt of it because she lived 45 minutes, almost an hour away from me. She had to come over and help me because the first few months I had a hard time functioning on my own, going shopping, things like that, cleaning my house, taking my dogs out, that kind of stuff. So she was having to do that along with having 2 kids and a husband and a full-time job. So it was understandable that she was trying to control my healing because she needed me to heal so that she didn't have to take care of me anymore. And there was an enormous amount of guilt for me. I felt an enormous amount of guilt about that, about the fact that there were all these people who needed me to get better because I was their touchstone. I was their healer. I was their person. I was their go-to person for help. And all of a sudden I need help. And they didn't know how to deal with it. It was very difficult for the people around me.
How do you feel as healers? How do you feel as healer in regards to your clients seeing you sick? Do you feel that affected your clientele?
Oh yeah. I didn't have clients for a while.
Was it your
my
choice,
clientele
or?
dropped off.
Oh,
No, I can't say that anybody left me because I was sick. They left me because I had to cut down my practice quite a bit and I didn't have a lot of energy. So I just wasn't as effective at first anyway, because I didn't know how to do healing work when I didn't feel good. And I kind of had this idea that I couldn't kind of drum up the energy that I needed to do it. And that was kind of pummeled into me by the people around me. Like, you shouldn't be working on clients when you don't feel good. You're going to get like, I'm going to give them my cooties or something.
well, we have to see one thing. I'm looking for the statistics in the medical field. We see that heart attacks and strokes causes 16% of trauma, PTSD recorded.
Say that again.
I'm reading here directly. Following a heart attack or myocardial infarction, MI, most studies of PTSD found prevalence rates ranging from 16 to 10% or 10 to 18% following cardiac surgery. So people have trauma, 18% of those people have heart issues. You fall in that equation too.
Mm-hmm.
People, women, of course, who have childbirth or gynecological trauma, 3% in the first.
Gynecological, so cute.
Sorry, right? My English. Up to 13 months post surgery. Are you guys making fun of me?
No, we are not.
No. Wow, that was amazing how you got your face so calm so quickly, Audra. I can learn from the mess. I'm sorry, honey, what were you saying?
And then you say just staying in intensive care, 18% of people leave the intensive care with PTSD. So these are
Yeah.
big numbers.
Yeah.
One
Well,
thing
even
that,
I saw something that said anywhere from 15 to 60%.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
most people don't talk about it. They just
yeah,
go on
60%.
and they twitch whenever something happens, or they hear a noise. They hear all these banging noise because you hear these banging noises in the hospital all the time too. It causes
Yeah.
or they hear a
The
siren. Yeah.
18 to 60, like 59%, 60%,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
One thing that you said before that really hit me, you said that through that experience, you went through a learning experience and you learned from it.
Oh yeah.
What was your takeaway being in the ICU? I remember you telling me about some experiences that you had that actually changed the way you practice as a healer.
Oh
You
yeah.
mind telling us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I had kind of a near-death experience, which was pretty cool. And it wasn't really a near-death experience. It was more like I was in the ICU, and all of a sudden I was able to see everybody's energy fields. It was like all of a sudden I started seeing how they looked, as opposed to how I had studied how they looked. It was very different, and really beautiful. I got to see what living light looks like, first of all, and it completely changed my perception about healing totally forever, because we have this idea that our human energy fields, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I apologize, but I have to talk about it here because it's a big component of it for me. Most of us believe that we who are healers or spiritual people believe that we have these, what we call auras around the bodies, for people of you who don't know what that is. And I always kind of perceived it as this flat light that you look at, like, you look at a light bulb, or even when we're looking at the sun or whatever. But that's not what humans look like at all. It's this beautiful spinning, vibrating, moving energy that moves around the body and spins. And as the person moves, it moved with them, and it would get bigger and smaller depending on what they were doing or thinking or feeling, and the colors would change. And it was just like, it was a living light show. And everybody had them, like even patients. And that kind of really changed my perception about healing, just to be able to really perceive it from that layer. And also just learning about the body from a more holistic perspective. As a healer, I was really focused on energy. I wasn't focused on the third dimension that much. And I needed to really become embodied. I needed to see my body as part of my light body, as part of my energy field. And that was not something that I really did or I thought about. I didn't see myself as a multidimensional being, even though I was intuitive and connecting in with my higher self. And I wasn't really fully connected into my third dimensional self. I wasn't connected into my shadow self. Even though I had done hypnotherapy and I went to school for went to college for psychology, I understood shadow work and the shadow self and things like that. But I didn't need to do it. What do I need to do that work for? I'm fine. So I didn't perceive myself as a full being. And it was, and it really, and so therefore, since I couldn't perceive myself that way, I couldn't perceive my clients that way either. So it shifted my consciousness around that, and it completely changed how I do healing work in general, to be wholly encompassing, where we're working on all the layers of the energy body, including the physical layers, including the emotional component of things, including trauma, which to me is like little pieces of you that are frozen in time. I had to do a lot of work around the healing, the trauma from the ICU and from losing my health, because I lost my body. There's no other way to put it. I lost my body. I lost my health. I lost my ability to walk through the world knowing that I was comfortable and safe in what I was doing, that I had control over what happened to me. And I don't. None of us do. It even came down to me, and it was something that I didn't even realize till Roman and I started dating. Like, when other people are driving, I'm like a tense wreck because I don't have control of the car. I've never been like that.
The
Ever.
illusion that you had of your safety in your body was completely shattered.
Yes. Yes. And so many clients come to me with that same illusion. And I never would have seen it before. I never would have seen what the core issue is before, unless I got sick. Now I see it. Now, as soon as they walk in the door, as soon as I get on the phone with them, I can recognize it because I've been there. And then we can work on that. And then once we work on that and we get to a point of where, they can kind of walk through the world feeling a little safer, then we can start to work on the deeper issues, Did I answer the question that you asked, Roman?
Yeah. I have another
Okay.
question. Of course, whoever watches can ask questions, and I'm sure even if you watch it in replay or you don't want to be live asking questions, because many of you are sensitive eventually and want to stay a little bit in the back, I can see that. As a dog trainer slash behaviorist slash healer, I also see the aspect of pets being in your home. So I know you were a dog lover and you work with rescuers, and you also did healing on animals, and you have 2 dogs. How did your pets help you or affect you through that transition time from being healthy
Well,
into being unhealthy?
well, first and foremost, they were uncomfortable because I was different. I smelled different because I was on all these medications. I looked different, and I also had all these hormones blasting through my body that I didn't have before. And dogs are sensitive. They were, to be frank, they were uncomfortable with me at first until they get used to the new me. And then they were just like my little support team. But I also sometimes I saw them as a hindrance because I lived in a little condo. I had to take them out to the bathroom. It was very challenging for me to take them out for walks and things like that, because I told you I was really sick. I was really, really sick. To the point of where I would have to get the little carts. When I got out of the hospital, this is hilarious. We had to, I lost my phone in the hospital. So I think it dropped and it got left in the parking lot, and then it just disappeared when I called 911. So nobody found my phone or picked it up. It was at night. So, and then nobody got it and it just disappeared. So I had to get a new phone right when I got out of the hospital. So my sister took me somewhere like Walmart or something. And I walked to the front door and I realized I couldn't walk anymore. So I had to sit on that little cart. The drive, with the ladies who they had a little electric car. And I was sitting there and I was laughing, and and I also had a panic attack. It was kind of like my first real understanding that I am never going to be the same.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. I'm that guy at Walmart driving the freaking electric cart because I can't walk, 200 feet to go get the phone. And I was like, holy crap. So that was hard. That was the first real realization that I'm in trouble here.
How do you feel people should perceive these kind of events? Like I was kind of like an old school person a couple of years back, believing that it's your karma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows who you were in the past and what you did, and now you have to pay for it. Or the other version of me, a little bit elder, well, Jesus, God, and you know what? You screwed up. You're going to hell, and this is the beginning. How do you feel people should see these kind of events from your perspective?
That's easy. actually. First and foremost, I think that judgment of any kind just needs to go out the window. Even judging people that you perceive as bad or, whatever, judgment needs to go out the window because you have no idea what they're going through. I had a temporary handicap because I had a hard time kind of walking because of the medication that I was on. Like I said, my heart rate wouldn't get up to a certain point. So I had to walk really slow sometimes. Sometimes I had good days, and my inflammation caused intense amount of like muscle weakness, which is common with Graves' disease because it attacks your immune system, will also attack your muscles so they can get really weak. But I look normal. I look like a normal person. So when I was having a bad day, I would park in that handicap spot and I would slowly walk and people would yell at me. I got notes on my car because I wasn't in a wheelchair. They didn't see me go in and get the stupid cart. They just saw me walk from my car. So much judgment from the healing community, so much judgment from the general population, so much judgment from everybody. And it's like, you have no idea what people are going through. And also when it comes to PTSD and trauma in general, that is a silent disease. It is something that you can't see on somebody just by looking at them. And so it's really important for family and friends to stop judging. It's really important for friends and family to say, you know what, how can I help you? Not you should do this and you should do that and you need this and you need that. Just say, how can I support you through this process? What do you need from me? Do you just need a shoulder to cry on? Do you need someone to talk to you? Do you need me to go get you groceries? What do you need from me? Stop trying to control their trauma. Stop trying to control their illness, because the reason that you're doing that is because you need to feel more comfortable, because you may be afraid for your family member or your loved one. People were scared for me. They were scared I was going to die, and they were trying to keep me from dying. But then they also were scared that they were going to lose their person that they always go to for help. And then they were also just compassionate about somebody in their space who is suffering. There's all these different things, but in that regard, it was all about them. Don't make it about you.
I see
the only way that you can really kind of hold space for somebody who's going through medical trauma is to hold space and pull your needs back for a little while and say, okay, you know what? How can I help you? What do you need from me?
And
don't judge. Those are the two things.
As husband and partner, I see how things can get very difficult because the illness affected all terms in the relationship, from making breakfast, from doing general chores, how you call that?
Yeah, chores.
Stuff in the house. And I'm really a messy person. Okay, don't.
There's messy and there's messy. Yeah.
And I get sometimes.
And I am not a messy person. Yeah.
I'm being able to keep things tight. Now, seeing you struggling with trying to been able to control something in your life, because you cannot control so many aspects of it, that you want control of that safe space, control of that clean space, control of environmental triggers. It's difficult to comprehend, if I say the word right, for somebody who's not in that mindset, who's like, why don't you make your coffee yourself? Why do you clean after yourself? And we don't see the struggles that the person have to not want to affect his partner and kind of silence about it. I'm not telling him that my scale of pain today is 9.5. And if I could, I would just go and cover myself and be out of the equation. And I also see that many people, I knew a couple of people who didn't make it through, and they committed suicide because they just couldn't bear it anymore, not being able to express how they feel, and they felt kind of silenced in that relationship. I also feel, and I know many relationships that I observed over the years, where the marriage went downhill because one side didn't felt satisfied, because in that relationship is everything about satisfaction and not about, holding space and being there for each other. And then other priorities come in, the job, family. Oh, you cannot have kids with my wife, now I have to divorce you because I want kids in my family, kind of thing. And we see all these environmental factors stepping in, and also seeing that as a woman who says, I need to survive here. I will not be able to give birth to a child because I may die. And people don't see that. Or I know a person who had knee problems, and the relationship fell apart because she could not comply to the special needs that are needed as a wife or as a partner. And so, how do you feel? And I know it's a very personal question, and because it's me, your husband. But now I would like you to step out of that and say, how do you feel supported by your partner? I'm not listening.
Well, how do I feel supported? So are you asking me how I feel supported by you, or how I feel how I
How
would?
do you feel supported as a woman from your husband, pretending your husband is not watching you?
That is that's a tall order there, handsome. Okay, so I think that it's important to listen, and it's important to become a little bit observant, and it's also really about your partner. All you have to do is look at me, and you can tell what's going on. You look at how I'm walking, if I'm walking slow, if I'm a little cranky. I'm never cranky because I'm just in a bad mood. I'm cranky because I'm having physical discomfort. Because what comes with an autoimmune disease, even though mine is technically, my thyroid disease is in remission, I still have an autoimmune disease. So what that comes with is, it comes with chemical sensitivities. It comes with environmental allergies, food allergies, that kind of thing. So, it gets too dirty in here, and I get dust allergies, and I get allergic to the dog hair, all that kind of stuff. All you have to do is kind of look at me, and you can tell when I'm in discomfort. Or just ask. It's also important to kind of really be understanding. If somebody says no, there's probably a reason for it. It's probably because of health. And that you have to, it's hard for people who are in a relationship with somebody with an autoimmune disease, or somebody who has medical trauma or PTSD in general, because the problem is that you are going to have to put your needs aside sometimes. Because that person is going to need you to just hold space for them. And when they say, no, I can't go out tonight, no, I can't do this, no, I can't go to dinner, recognize that there's a reason behind it. And you have to kind of honor it and accept it, and deal with it. I hate to say it. Get support outside of your marriage or outside of your partnership. Have people that you can talk to who can support you, because you're going through something too. When somebody goes through an experience that causes trauma or PTSD, it's really hard on the partner. And it's very important. I know you guys talked about this with Sierra. It's important to get help for you, and to go see a therapist, or go see somebody, or go talk to somebody who may understand what you're going through, so that you can best support your partner's needs. But also have your needs supported as well, if your partner isn't able to support your needs in that way. But it's also important to share with your partner in a way that is loving what you're going through, so that they understand that you do have challenges as well. So open communication is important, but it's also important to also have a support network that's going to help you through the process.
Yeah, I think sometimes when people are experiencing PTSD or trauma response, sometimes they don't understand what's going on with them, and they're trying to understand, why do I feel this way? Why, they're trying to understand all the whys too. So when their partner is asking them, like, what's going on with you, and you tell them, I don't know, I think that people need to try to be more understanding. It would be helpful for everybody involved if people try to maybe consider the fact that the person who's going through something might not really understand what it is they're going through either.
That's a huge component of it, Audra. I mean, it's huge because like Roman will ask me like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And then I have to kind of go through this process of figuring it out. And sometimes it's just straight up. I do still have, I'm so much better. But you as a PTS survivor who's done an extraordinary amounts of work, the both of you, to heal, know that it's going to come up still. And so, on top of that, I have other trauma in my life too. Things have not been perfect either. So, but the fact of the matter is that was my most recent, most intense experience. Almost losing your life is scary for anybody. Almost losing it twice for the same, but then also never knowing when it's going to happen again. That is not comfortable, but I do understand that everybody dies. I will die, at some point. Could be tomorrow. It could be 30 years from now. I don't know. It's something that we all have to deal with. So, but the fear around suffering that comes up still for me, it's still a thing that I work on daily. When I start to not feel good, instead of just being super loving with myself and kind and taking a day off, because I have a very, very successful, extremely busy healing practice, Roman makes me go lay down. He gives me permission because I won't give myself permission. He gives me permission to be lazy, and he goes, you know what? I will cook lunch. I will take care of things for you today. Just go lay down. Just go read a book. Just go chill out. That is very, very supportive and very helpful. And, it's something that I'm learning to do for myself too, to give myself time to heal, to give myself time to not put pressure on myself to be normal, and to just like move through the world, because I'm not like everybody else. I have something that's unique to me and different that I struggle with. That makes sense.
How do you incorporate your trauma experience into the healing practice?
Oh God, it's I'm so much more understanding. It's taught me not to be judgmental of other people and what they're going through, even if I don't understand it, because I do get people in my practice and I don't understand what they're going through. I've never had the experience, a large portion of the people. But I can be empathetic to it and compassionate and meet them from a place of love. Whereas before, I was trying to heal. I was trying to help them heal. Now I don't try to help anybody heal. I just facilitate healing and support, and I can meet them in a different way because I have no preconceived idea of how I think they should feel after they're done with me, because I don't know what that way is, because it's unique for everybody else. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Totally.
Audra, what was your takeaway today? I mean, I took a lot. So what was
It's a long, sorry, we went over because I can talk.
I think that some of the highlights for me is that one, Barbara mentioning that, to throw away judgment because you don't know what people are going through. That's a huge thing. PTSD can come from many different places. Anytime you go through an experience where you lose control, something huge where you lose control, there is an opening for PTSD to occur. And I think that one of the other big things that you had said, Barbara, is that PTSD is a silent disease. And I don't, even though I know that because I've experienced it and I've been silent about it, to hear it out loud, to hear somebody else say that it's a silent disease was really impactful for me, because it is a silent disease. And I think that people need to take that into consideration. As far as the healing world goes, I think that we as healers have learned a lot by watching our other healer friends go through physical, and we ourselves, like it is that whole illusion of a healer is supposed to be perfect and always well is such bullshit.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that the healers that have gone through some major experiences, you being one of them, and you were kind of like a way shower, like in the beginning when the whole healing thing started getting really the spotlight kind of put on it. I don't know, it kind of put a spotlight on shadow work and how important that is, and how it's not bad. Like it was always perceived, oh, the shadow is bad. No, it's not.
Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. You know, yeah, absolutely. And the thing of it too, you touched on a good point. It's really important for us to remember, for everybody to remember that as for PTSD and trauma, you don't have to have just been in a war. Okay.
Right.
It's really what it comes down to is people not being in control of their own body and what happens to it. Whether it's somebody shooting at you, or it's sexual assault, or, you know, somebody who's been molested, or somebody who's had a physical trauma like an intense accident or an experience in the hospital, or even getting a diagnosis when you feel fine. PTSD is a result of us not feeling like we're in control of our own life and our own body. And you know, we have to all remember that and understand that that happens to a good portion of us. Mm-hmm. Anybody can experience it, and they may not even know that that's what they're actually going through. There's a lot of people who don't know that their struggles have everything to do with a personal experience of that kind, you know. And the shadow work thing is also really important too, because we need to look at the darker aspects of ourselves. Like Audra and you and I went through very different ways of doing it, but it was the same darn thing. Mm-hmm. Of bringing those pieces of ourselves up to surface that need more love and need more healing. That's what shadow work is to me.
Yeah.
Well, as a partner, go ahead.
As a tip to everybody that's been listening to Barbara's story and everything that's been discussed, I remember when you were talking, Barbara, that you said like people don't talk about it, what's going on with them, because they don't realize that it's a trauma that they're experiencing, or PTSD, or like in the medical aspect of it, they're like, well, I'm not going to say anything because people aren't going to understand why I'm going through this, or why I'm being irrational, or whatever the case may be. But I think that you'd find if you started talking about what's going on with you internally a little bit more, people will actually relate to you more than you think that they will. Like, you don't have to hide these bits and pieces about yourself that you don't understand just because nobody else is talking about it.
Yeah. That's true.
My takeaway as a partner and as a healer and as a person is, I know that many people are afraid of seeing the reality of PTSD face to face. They look away from it. Like, I don't want it to never happen to me, never. And then they don't learn from it. They don't learn from other people's PTSD. They don't learn from other people's struggle until they come into that point, and then have no clue about what to do. And I feel we have this kind of taboo, which slowly opens up a little bit to say, you can have PTSD all over the place. You don't need to be a soldier to have PTSD. You can be just a mother. You can just be a partner. You can be just a child, have PTSD. And it's not a disease. It's a condition that you have to look into it, and there is a way out to heal. But in order to do so, both sides, the receiving side and the giving side, have to become aware of all of these facets of it, understanding the body of those PTSD and how do we help. So I think my takeaway from that conversation, and from my experience living with you together, is that we have to overcome our own PTSD and our own fears to be able to help at some point. Just asking the questions, how can I help you, means I have to get over my own fear first, understanding what my fear is. What if I cannot help? What if she says, leave me alone? What if she says, I cannot live with you because you're not keeping the house in order, or we cannot have sex, or we cannot have going on vacations, or we cannot go in the movies because I don't feel good, and all of a sudden my whole imaginary perfect world collapses. So if a person cannot handle that, then the person likely would just walk away. So yeah,
I
you
don't
can.
think that. I
Yeah.
don't think that it's, I don't think they should get over their fear. I think that it's more about going into the fear and seeing why you're afraid of that.
Going
That's
in,
what shadow work is, right? Is
right?
going into
Going
the
into that
fear
shadow work.
and, yeah, diving into it instead of going, yeah, I got to get over it so I can help this person, and actually looking at what they're marrying for you. That makes
Good
sense.
point. And
Yeah.
then my next takeaway would be able to ask questions instead of trying giving suggestions. Like a simple question like, how can I help you today? Is there anything I can do for you? And
Mm,
just taking um, taking away that information, sit with that a little bit, don't take it personally, and see how you can offer help. And what other I see here is that I so appreciate you guys to be together and share your experience today, because we all learn from that. And I think having that opportunity to hear people just like you and me and Audra um, talking to their stories will help other people help getting into that space as well. And says, okay, so it's not a bad thing to talk about it. And
right.
even if you get the backlash, so what? It's not my problem. They have to deal with it. It's their problem. They have to deal with it. I have to express my emotions. I have to express how I feel because I have the right to do so.
Mm,
And I don't need to suppress myself because the other ones cannot handle it. It's the other people's problem. They cannot handle it. And it's the
right.
other people who judge you for who you
Mm,
really are, not seeing, what you have been through and how you survived. Instead of taking a lesson and a message from that, looking away from that is also an option, I guess. So
yeah.
um, I really appreciate whoever watches here, and I also appreciate um, for you want to be kind of like in the background and not just think about it sometimes. And I feel Audra also agrees with, if you want to share your experience and give a small window out of your perspective to things that you have been through trauma, message us, message Audra, message me. If you need help, support, going through this healing process, understanding what the situation is, seeing how this can be turned into a better healing options by recognizing that it's not just you and it's not just your own problem. It's not because you were a bad person in the previous life. There is an energy aspect that we didn't touch yet, but I'm sure we will in the near future when people feel a bit more comfortable of our trajectory that we have here, to talk about how we can implement our healing journey and our ascension process to help other people go through that as well. Do you want anything to say or share before we close today?
I just want to thank you guys for doing what you're doing. I'm so glad that I actually kind of, I don't know if you know this, Audra, but I told Roman about you, and that he should contact you because, I thought you guys would be a good team.
I had a feeling that there was a wizard behind the curtain.
Yeah, it was me. It was me. And then when he's like, "Oh, we're gonna do this podcast together," I was like, "I know, I know."
I know.
So, of course you are. And I just love what you guys are doing, and I think it's a really powerful and a really important, and I think we need to get it out there. Audra, you know how much I love you, and I know I kept, like, me and a million other people are like, you need to write a book about your trauma and your journey. And Audra started, like, for those of you who don't know or haven't followed her, what she started just like when she went into therapy for a while. She was in therapy for a while, and she just posted like her journey. She like basically used Facebook as a diary of her ups and downs, and it was amazing to watch. And what was also amazing, and it was because it was so healing for so many people to sit there and watch that. And Roman, same thing. He blog posts all the time about, his struggles and his trauma and things like that. So I'm super grateful to both of you, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so
I made
much.
myself all weepy.
Thank you for putting the idea out there. I think it's great that, people come together and create something, healing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Thank you so much for you guys.
Am I
Thank you so
doing
much. Yeah, right. Thank you
I
so
can't
much.
wait to give you a hug again, Audra. I just miss you so much.
I know. I miss you too.
Have a great rest of your weekend. If you
Bye,
have
you
any
guys.
questions, you can post on the comments below. And looking forward to hear back from you all. Bye-bye.
Bye, you guys.
Come have a coffee with survivors. Audra and Roman inviting guests and holding space to discuss the healing journey to reunite with our true selves.
We see you. We hear you. Welcome to Coffee with Survivors, our safe place.